Greetings, everybody. This is part 2 of our APOC Tactical Jian review. This part of the review is going to focus on test cutting. I'm Scott Rodell here at the Great River Taoist Center in our Academy of Chinese Swordsmanship. If you haven't already, please check out part 1 where I go over the balance, stats, and everything for this sword. This part, as I said, is really going to focus on how well the sword cuts. It's late June here already, almost July. I'm going to be cutting this year's bamboo, but this time of year, especially after the really hot days we've had recently, the bamboo now is quite hard. If I were to cut just a month ago, certainly 2 months ago, that bamboo would be much softer. So this is going to be a real test, not only if the sword performs well in test cutting, but how the edge holds up, because this is going to be really tough bamboo. And by the way, if you're not familiar with cutting bamboo as a test cutting target, not only is the link below for part 1 of this review, but also a link to my discussion on bamboo and how times of year, parts of the shaft, etc., affect the cutting. So please check out those videos. But now let's head out and do some cutting. Well, that was an interesting couple of sessions. I spent 2 mornings out cutting. And as I said earlier, the bamboo this time of year, after the really hot days we've had, is really, really hard and tough. So that was a good test for the sword and for myself. It definitely can cut. It has the mass at 2 pounds. It can deliver the cut that I need to get through that tough bamboo. But I do have a couple of concerns. Before I discuss those, if you take a quick look at the edge, completely undamaged, nothing at all. So I was really hitting hard into the bamboo, and looking at the blade, it looks like it just came out of the box, like I just got it yesterday. So that's really good. Good, solid piece, no question about that. And certainly it can cut. But I have 2 concerns. If I'm thinking about this Jian as a dedicated cutter, there are 2 things we need to be aware of. The first, at 26.5 inches, even though it's 2 pounds, it is essentially a Duan Jian or a short Jian. It's not like a Chang Jian that's 3 to 4 inches longer than this. What that means is that when you're delivering a cut, your arm goes through a kind of natural arch. You want to stretch into that arc so that you're extending a little bit as you cut, but naturally your arm is going to draw back a little bit. And because you've got this shorter blade that's 3-4 inches shorter than a quote, full length Jian, a Chang Jian, sometimes as you're cutting, you get 80-90% of the way through, and just at that moment, you're almost through the bamboo stalk, and your arm is now on that last part of the arc where it's drawing back a little bit, and you end up cutting like 90% of the way through, and either falls over or sometimes it even stays up there. And that's not a bad cut at all. There's nothing wrong with a cut like that. I've been cutting for some time. If you think about things historically speaking, you cut in and cut out. You're not cutting a person in half or things like that. A lot of times even cutting through an arm and a leg. You wouldn't even really attempt that in swordplay, historically speaking. I'm not looking to cut things completely off. I need to cut and get my sword free and not let my sword get jammed up in the cut. So nothing wrong with a cut like that, but it's not particularly satisfying when you're cutting a piece of bamboo. It's always nice to and have it break. So, as a test cutter, okay, I've done a lot of cutting, I understand that, but it is definitely more satisfying when you're completely through as opposed to 90% of the way through, because you just didn't get that last little bit because the blade's a little bit shorter. So that's just something to be aware of. That's not something wrong with the sword or wrong with the cutter. Doesn't make it a bad cut, but it's nice when it goes all the way through, right? We all enjoy that. So be aware of that. It's nice to have a shorter blade like this, as I mentioned in part 1 of this review. If you don't have as much indoor space to practice, or you want something that's more convenient to carry around, a shorter sword like this is nice. But if you want a dedicated cutter, you're really practicing the techniques that are in your system, it's nice to also have that little bit longer sword. Perhaps a shorter sword like this is better for somebody who's just starting off cutting, because being shorter, I'm discussing in a moment, the point of balance a little bit closer to the guard, that makes it a little bit easier to handle. And that, of course, is the second concern I have, that point of balance, as we discussed also in the first part of this review, is historically accurate. We should keep in mind there isn't like a set point of balance. And people often ask me, what's the proper point of balance for a Jian? And they want to know like a certain measurement from the guard. It's not that simple. It's not just where the sword balances. It's the overall mass distribution on the blade. We have to make sure that it can move and change, right? I have to be able to change the position of the blade quite quickly to adjust. I have to be able to move it, to stir, to get in position to deflect. But I also have to have enough mass toward the tip, not just where it balances, but the distribution of the mass, that I can deliver an effective cut. And you can deliver an effective cut with this, but it's a little bit tip light. And that also means that sometimes, even with a quicker shortcut, because in Jian we have both big, powerful cuts, and boom, you can step in with the door and get in a big deflection, a big, powerful cut and come in. You can do cuts like that. So you got that step, you can put power into it. And by the way, being able to take that step, it's one way you can make up for that shorter length, is instead of staying in place, is to step through into it if you want to. It depends how you're cutting. But with a point of balance a little bit back, sometimes when you're trying to give that cut, like a quick shorter cut, quick P cut, it doesn't quite have the mass to really just sort of, because they hammer right through and to give that kind of cut. So as a dedicated cutter, those are two things that I have concerns about. So overall, as a general practice sword, yeah, I'd recommend it. Definitely say that's a recommended buy, particularly for a newer practitioner. But for somebody who is really getting into test cutting, I think there are some alternatives, especially a blade that's a little bit longer, that'll probably be more satisfying for the average practitioner. So overall, still quite happy with it, but there are those two things that give me a little pause when it comes to this sword as a dedicated cutter. So I hope this is helpful, interesting to everybody. Please do follow us, subscribe, because we got more videos coming out all the time. You don't want to miss anything. We always appreciate that thumbs up. We really appreciate it when you share these videos in social media. It really helps us to promote the art and grow the channel. Until next time, everybody, stay strong. Thanks for watching. 再见。